Imagine for a moment a man who feels a deep desire for a woman, but despite all his attention and efforts, he feels that her interest is waning. Does this sound familiar, this phenomenon? Which I have observed in many patients during my 35 years of practice as a psychologist and family counselor, is based on very specific psychological mechanisms. Today, we will explore together why, paradoxically, creating distance can increase attraction, especially with women. Maxime's story perfectly illustrates this concept. Maxime, a 32-year-old man, worked tirelessly to win over Emma, a brilliant and independent colleague. Every day, he tried to please her, sent her messages, and complimented her profusely. But the more present he was, the more he felt her interest diminishing. Emma seemed distant, busy, and her desire for Maxime did not emerge despite all his efforts. Together, we explored what was happening in the dynamics of their relationship. I explained to him that attraction is not built solely on availability or compliments. It is intimately linked to the psychology of scarcity, independence, and mystery. When Maxime began to slightly reduce his availability to invest time in his passions, his friends, and his personal activities, something fascinating happened. Emma began to notice his presence differently, to feel a new curiosity. And her interest in him increased. Distance, when used consciously and respectfully, creates a psychological space where desire can develop. Women instinctively perceive the value of a man who has a rich and independent life. They are attracted to those who are not immediately accessible. Because scarcity and mystery reinforce attraction. Let's take another example, Clara and Thomas. Thomas, a middle-class man, met Clara, an accomplished and very independent woman. Initially, he constantly tried to please her, making himself available at every moment and anticipating her every need. Clara, although touched by his attention, didn't feel any desire developing. Together, we implemented a strategic distancing process. Thomas continued to show interest, but without being omnipresent. He focused on his hobbies, his friends, his personal development, and gave Clara space to experience longing and anticipation. Within a few weeks, Clara started thinking about him spontaneously, seeking his gaze, and initiating interactions. What many men don't understand is that desire is fueled by anticipation and emotional space. 1. A man is available at all times. He doesn't leave room for the other person to project their desires or feel the absence. Waiting creates excitement, independence demonstrates value, and mystery captivates. I also met Paul, a man in his 40s, who believed that to attract his partner, he had to constantly show his attention and availability. We worked on his body language, his posture, and his emotional presence. Paul learned to maintain a subtle and authentic presence, not to rush to fill every space or respond immediately to every message. He began to focus on his personal development, his passions, and maintaining a certain emotional autonomy. Gradually, his partner showed renewed desire, curious to discover what he was doing and to regain his attention. In the middle of this video, I want to remind everyone listening to subscribe to the Couple and Desire channel. Like and share this video. You will find many tips on attraction, desire, and relationships to strengthen your charisma and confidence and understand the psychological mechanisms behind attraction. Strategic distancing also works in long-term relationships. I coached a couple married for over 10 years, where routine and habit had extinguished the flame. The man began to invest time in his passions and not be available every moment for his wife. The surprise: her interest in him was dramatically rekindled. She started desiring him again, seeking his presence, and their emotional and sexual intimacy strengthened. Another fundamental aspect is emotional control and inner confidence. Women are instinctively attracted to a man who doesn't depend on their validation to exist. This doesn't mean being cold or distant, but showing that you have a rich life, full of passions and relationships, and that you are happy on your own. This independence creates a natural magnetic effect. I remember Julian, a young man who believed that to attract someone, he had to talk a lot and make grandiose gestures. We worked on his posture, his energy, and how he interacts subtly. Julian learned to use micro-gestures, lingering glances, and strategic silence to create tension and anticipation. During an encounter with the woman he desired, he was both attentive and mysterious, without ever overacting. The result: she began to observe him, look for his signals, and feel deeply attracted. Every human interaction is governed by complex psychological mechanisms. Strategic distance acts on several of them. It creates a sense of longing, reinforces perceived value, stimulates curiosity, and allows the person to feel growing desire rather than seeing it fade due to excessive availability. I've also noticed that some men are afraid that distance will be interpreted as disinterest. But the key is to remain authentic and consistent, show interest, but without rushing or becoming too distant. Authenticity and emotional consistency are perceived unconsciously and create a deep and lasting desire. Finally, stories of married couples or long-term relationships show that strategic distance is not only useful for seduction, but also for rekindling the flame and strengthening intimacy. When each person maintains a rich personal life and respects the other, attraction and desire become almost automatic. In conclusion, understanding the psychology of desire and using distance consciously can transform your relationships. You become a confident, independent, and attractive man, and the other person's desire grows naturally. Distance, when authentic and respectful, does not create negative emotional distance, but stimulates curiosity, interest, and deep desire. Tell me in the comments, and if you know someone who needs to hear this message, feel free to share it. Sometimes, the right words at the right time can prevent years of suffering. Tell me where you're watching this video from. I'm so happy to see the couple and desire community growing all over the world. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this message. See you soon in the next video, where we'll continue building respectful relationships that allow us to thrive. Sending you hugs from my office.